something, so I will just turn it over to Mr. Banks.
That's the word. When we need to focus on and really get involved. At this time, we're going to introduce our panel and starting here on first, I'd like to introduce my co-worker, Carter. Come on up, Carter. Okay. I'm going to introduce Reverend Watts and Deborah Robinson, and then you introduce the other guests we have. I don't have to say much about Reverend Watt. I mean, I made the statement I can say that much because he's already made his name known by saying some great things to us already. I've been knowing Reverend Watt for quite a few years, and he could know a better person. I was at one time and still work with the youth program in the Charleston area, and he's helped me a great deal in work with young people. The most important, he has been a joint and a great help to the people in the state of West Virginia, and particularly the Charleston area. And I want you to listen very carefully for the things he's going to bring to us today. He's a legend out here in the state of West Virginia. He's been a great help. And I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say and participate in this panel discussion. Deborah Robinson, who I've been knowing for a little while, she is going to bring a lot to our panel, and we're looking to hear from her and her input regarding education. And Mr. Carter, you want to introduce our next three panelists?
Debbie Robinson will introduce Ms. Woods, and I will introduce Ms. Woodson.
Okay, all right. You want to go ahead?
Good morning. It gives me pleasure to introduce this young lady to you. She's not only a very good friend of mine, but a very good worker in the community. throughout this tri-state area as well as the state. There's a lot I can say about her. In the interest of time, I'll just try, which was difficult, to focus some of her key points. Excuse me, Diane Lewis is the founder and president and CEO of Action Facilities Management, located in Morgantown, Maine, Morgantown, West Virginia. Under Ms. Lewis's expert guidance, she has grown from two or more than 300 employees since its founding. Ms. Lewis received in 2007 the West Virginia Minority Small Business Recognition from the West Virginia Executive Magazine and was awarded as a 2008 Young Gun. In 2009, she was appointed to the West Virginia University Board of Governors by Governor Joe Manchin. One of the key points as to why Dr. Diane Lewis is here today, and she's been very, very active in the community. She served as treasurer for the Grand Baptist Church in Morgantown, West Virginia. She is vice president of Members of Diversity, and it's a local nonprofit community group that promotes education and supports minority networking and culture. So, without further ado, you will hear more from her along with these lines of issues.
Ms. Lisa Woodson is a PhD candidate, social work. She's a professor at Marshall University, an activist in the community, and has special expertise. She has a 16-year-old daughter in the high school in Temple County, and she has a son who is 21 who has gone through that system. So she has special expertise. We have a central West Virginia icon, and that's Mr. James Griffin. Mr. James Griffin has the distinction of coming from a great heritage. In Clarksburg, it's called Walker Street. And the historic Mount Zion Baptist Church, and you will hear from that pastor. You will hear from more and more in a minute. Mr. Griffin is the former chair of Fairmont State University's Board of Governors. All right, now, we're talking about policy now, and we don't see too many of us in those positions as with Ms. Lewis. Very few. Mr. Griffin is also chair of the Board of Governors of Pure Pond Community Technical College right across the street, which hosted us here with one of these forums with Professor Banks last summer. So we have a very distinguished panel. As you can see, there is gender sensitivity. There is geographic sensitivity. There are people who have raised children on this panel. And let's give our panel a round of applause.
That's what's going to open this session up in way I don't know if I mentioned, but that's what's pastor of Grace Bible Church there in Charleston. Been there for a long time. And Reverend Watts, we're going to let you open this discussion up and comments up in terms of this education summit.
trying to save my voice. I preach twice tomorrow. But what I like to do is kind of share the context of what I kind of do. My focus really has been K through 12. That's where my passion is. That's where I've done an extensive amount of research. I've followed the legislation over the years, trying to make an impact. And I'll talk a little about that. First thing I want to talk about is the Senate Bill 359, the Education Reform Bill. So this robust education reform bill, it emerged out of the education audit that Governor Tomlin ordered back in 2011, and they paid $750,000 for the group out of Pennsylvania to come in and do an audit of the West Virginia school system. And then it was supposed to serve as a basis for a robust education reform initiative. I'm sure you followed some of it in the newspaper. A lot of that stuff got negotiated out. They went in the back room with the AFT, the WEA, the governor's staff, and the President of the Senate and the House Speaker, and they negotiated out the big ideas out of the budget. And so those of us who followed this, we're less than enthusiastic. We don't think this is a major education reform bill at all. There's some interesting little nuanced policies in the bill that if communities work aggressively, they can move some things forward. But education reform did not happen with Senate Bill 359. Here's some of the main things in the bill we think do have some merit. One has to do with the universal pre-K for children age 4. So we think that is important. Research shows that children who get in the early child development programs do much better in terms of long-term education outcomes. We now know the research about brain development, that's very important. So it will create an opportunity for more children, hopefully all of our kids, to be up in early child development programs. Secondly, there was a big to-do made out of this, and I never could figure it out, this whole big issue about all children reading on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade. I thought that's what we've been trying to do since we started public education. I couldn't figure it out. I mean, every teacher works his or her salt. I mean, understands that kids learn to read basically from early childhood to about the 3rd grade. They read to learn from that point on. And they make it like we just discovered water or something like that we don't have this effort, but at least attention is going to be brought to it. I'm not sure if there's going to be any additional resources or not, but they're touting as a major accomplishment. The third thing which we think has some merit is somewhat controversial. We think in some neighborhoods it's the right thing, and that is what they call the balanced calendar opportunity, or year-round. We don't like to use the term year-round because kids think we make them go to school for 12 months. So the idea of the balanced calendar, which we give counties flexibility in terms of when they start school, so that they have the opportunity to get the 180 days of instruction in. There are other benefits of the balanced calendar. If you will talk to me off to the side, I'll share with them. And we're trying to get the balanced calendar. All the schools in our neighborhood, 5 schools, will be all on the same schedule, because we think they have to deal with truancy and some other issues, as well as academic remediation, doing intersections and so forth. The fourth piece had to do with something the governor's trying to do around middle schools, getting middle school kids exposed to the vocational and technical education opportunities, which we do think is a wonderful idea. Keep them to know that voc tech opportunities are available for them so they can make those decisions when they get in 9th grade. And then the fifth one has to do with the preparation of high school students. And as I read that, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I think there's going to be some tests of 11th graders to see their preparedness for post-secondary education. And then in the 12th grade, they would get some additional support services to try to get them prepared for post-secondary education, whether it's job school, whether it's VOTech, whether it's community technical college or 4-year colleges. And so, as far as we're concerned, those are the big ideas. 5 of the biggest ideas really that's in the bill. There's a lot of other stuff around policy issues in terms of how professional development is going to be done. There's tug of war between the recess, between the Center for Professional Development and then the State Department of Education. So what the bill does do, it does spell out pretty clearly in some areas who's in control. And basically the power is being given more to the State Board of Education rather than the State Superintendent's Office. And that tug of war carried over the firing of Superintendent Drew Markle. And so it's pretty much clear there in terms of where the power is going to rest and reside, and more power is going to be with the State Board of Education. The last thing I will say is one thing we're kind of excited about, and we hope it will be a benefit to other communities, is that we wrote a section for that bill, it's section 18312, I'll send it to you, you're interested in seeing it, section 18312, and it deals with a community development school pilot demonstration project. And the idea was that communities would have the opportunity to pilot some things outside of the normal educational process to see if they could get better outcomes. And so the west side of Charleston is going to be that pilot, 5 schools there. We've written a 16-point plan of specific things we want to do in that neighborhood to see if we can turn the corner. And I close with this. Here's why. Because if you look at almost any of the national groups like Naacp, the National Association of Education Process, that evaluates or compares schools, right? Well, West Virginia ranks at the bottom. You don't matter who you look at. They're either 49th, we're the 50th, or we're the 51st. I don't care who you look at, how they've been ranking, and the bottom is the bottom, you know? And so, as a state, now, here's the problem with that, is that black students are at the bottom. Of the bottom. Black kids in the bottom of the bottom. And black boys in the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. Right? Very last of everybody. All right? And with that as the backdrop, in the neighborhood that I'm called to serve, the west side of Charleston, we have 3 of the 4 poorest performing schools in the state of West Virginia. In the whole state. Our elementary schools. If you talk about the Dow County, there's only 1 elementary school, and it's not elementary, K through 8, Southside and Wells. It's the only school in McDowell County that has elementary kids in the school that's below aisle 4. It's the only one. And so we got serious problems in our neighborhood, and that's why you watch the west side, because we're going to blow the thing up. We've been too nice, too long, too polite, too long, too respectful, too long. We've served notice at the Capitol that we're going to try this plan, and if we don't get support for it, basically we're going to file suits that the direct decision is not being applied, our kids not getting a third efficient education. We're going to call for the firing of principal. We're serious about this because our kids are of the poorest performing kids in the state, and the school system is poorest performing in the nation. We arguably have some of the poorest performing kids in the entire United States of America, and they're all concentrated in one neighborhood. So we're hoping that other communities will look at what we're doing. I was really glad to send you the draft of the plan that we've written and that we're trying to get implemented. I don't have my time, and thank you for yours.
We won't wait till, why don't we wait till, and then we hold your question, write it down someplace, and we'll come back if we have time. Okay. Mrs. Lewis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to thank you all for inviting me to be part of the panel here today. Some of you may know I am originally from Clarksburg. I am a Harrison County girl, so it's good to be back in the neighborhood. Actually, Reverend Watt's information sort of segues into mine, and it's a good lead-in. About 4 years ago, my husband and I, and we had a pastor, Pastor Smith, had noticed on TV that a lot of the minority students weren't getting arrested, they weren't playing sports, they were always in trouble, they weren't participating in anything that was positive. And with Pastor Smith and my husband, Ken Jackson, we decided to try to do something in the community to help alleviate some of that pain that we saw in the parents and what they were trying to do. So it actually started out as a men's group that were going to go in and try to work with the young boys to try to keep them out of trouble, try to keep them from being arrested and getting a record and ruining their life. And it started like that, but the men sort of faded off a little bit. You know, they came out, the first time we had 50 guys to come out and support these kids. And then it just sort of dissipated. And one day I was there at the meeting, and I said, if you brought the women in, we could probably help you a little bit. So whenever, and at that time, they called their group Men of Color, and that was back in like 2008, okay? And so, well, we decided that, they decided basically to bring the women in, and we actually changed the name of the group to Numbers of Diversity, and we were going to make it a broader range, not just to help the males that needed some guidance, but any child that was underrepresented or needed some kind of focus or some help. And in 2010, we actually received our 501c3 through the federal government with our Numbers of Diversity. And at that time, Debbie was with me at the time, we actually went to the state superintendent, Dr. Devano, and presented some information about Numbers of Diversity, what our program was, what we wanted to do in the school system. And he looked at us and said, you want the kids that nobody else wants. He said, do you know what you're asking for? And so with that being said, he said, I'd love to have you guys come into the school. And he actually made a way for us to work with each school, starting with the high schools. We actually go into each high school. There's 3 high schools. There's Morgantown High, University High, and Clay Patel. And we started that just to try and get a feel of what we were doing. And we also brought in Washington University to help us a little bit. With me being on the board, they were like, okay, if you want me to come, I'll come. But we actually started with 11th and 12th graders, trying to get them into some type of work ethic, to where that we actually started doing applications with them, because a lot of them didn't know how to fill out an application. We started doing mock interviews with them to try to make sure that they weren't saying the wrong information whenever they went to the interview. To try to teach them not to bring a friend into the interview, not to have somebody sitting there answering your questions, not to listen to your cell phone, all those types of things. And actually, it sort of worked the first time we tried it. And the kids were hungry, they were happy. We came in every month and worked with them for about 4 months. The next year, we came with a whole curriculum. We made a curriculum for the whole 11th and 12th graders. And we actually started from the very beginning of the year. And we actually told them if they went through a whole program for that year, that we would give them some type of employment opportunities at the end of the year in the spring. And so we took it a step further. We actually went out and found employers to sort of work with these students throughout the summer to give them some money to work with and to help grow them a little bit. The last couple of years, it's just sort of grown from there, and we actually, to this date, we now have a president and we have an executive board. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that we're doing right now in the school system. We have basically 3 focuses. One is the education program, and that's the one I was talking about that sort of got us started, but it actually went a little bit further than that. And I actually brought, and I know you can't see it from here, but this here is our website front page that shows about us, what we're there for, what the focus, what the mission is, and what our plans are for the children and who we work with in the community. The programs are education programs, non-traditional students and youth adults. It's called a Connect 2 program, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we also have other community outreach, which we're trying to put in a community resource center for kids and young adults that don't have a place to go and use the computers, or they want to sharpen their skills. With that said, the program on the education, we call it Student Up, okay? And it's the career development, it's financial literacy. A lot of the students don't even know that if you get bad credit when you're in high school, because they're getting high school students credit cards, that it will eliminate you from some opportunities in jobs, and it just messes up your life from the very beginning. They have never been told that. And these are the things that they don't really tell you in school that we try to work with and try to keep them on the right path. The health and wellness. A lot of them don't know about their health and what they're doing to their bodies and how they're not getting checked early enough to where that they can function, and they're not getting enough sleep and things like that. And we also try to work with conflict resolution, to try to teach them that just going out on the streets and just yelling whatever slur words you want to yell out there, that's not the right way, and nobody's going to respect you that way. So those are some of the things we do. The Connect 2 program is It's basically designed to re-engage youth and young adults with their families in the surrounding community. It's for those that need a second chance. And a lot of them need a second chance. And we actually are working with Captain Merrill of the state police. He is one of 11 children, and he said that had somebody not reached out to him to try to help him, that he would not be the captain of the state police today. So we've got that program that we're just implementing, but there are so many needs out there that we're trying to pick what we think we can make a difference right now this time. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the Community Resource Center. That it's going to be open to anybody that's underrepresented. We're going to have a grand opening in August of this year, so you're all welcome and invited to participate. But it actually, we have a building, our church bought, it's 27,000 square feet. It needs some work, but the church is good enough to us, and it's where Pastor Smith had started, and he had passed away in 2008 as we started our vision. But they allow us to have our monthly meetings there every month, and they allow us to use it for our any event that we want to promote members of diversity. So it's there, and it's going to be recreation, community, fitness, technology resource center, health and nutrition programs, child development and family mentoring, and health screening is what we're looking at. But a lot of this has been done with no funds given from anybody else. A lot of it, Debbie can testify to it, my husband and I have put a lot of money into these programs. Last year we got our first grant through Delegate Charlene Marshall, and it was for $5,000. And later today, where I'm sure I'm going and Debbie's going, we actually have opportunities there for the children in Montague County, and we put incentives in place for them to participate in that opportunities fair. And we actually have little cards here that we made and gave out to schools for everybody. But the whole idea is to get the kids involved and not leave them alone, and to try to help them however we can. I heard Reverend Mark talk about going down to the middle school. Dr. Romano, our superintendent, has asked us, he said, could you next year maybe incorporate that into your program, because that's where we see the problem starting. And with that being said, we need more volunteers.
First in educational policy, helps do educational policy, and educational law. It's interesting issue about reading. A lot of people don't know that the number of prison cells that are built is based upon the third grade students' test scores. And a lot of the test scores is based upon the reading score. And that's why there's such an emphasis on reading by third grade. There's a lot of problems in the school system, behavior problems, because children aren't able to read. And when you're unable to read, you become disruptive in the classroom, because discipline is the #1 issue in the school system today. I'm on the front lines every day. 4 or 5 buildings per week, hundreds of teachers. But that is the real true issue behind the test scores for the reading by third grade, because they build a number of prison cells based on that test score. If you read, Ohio did a study out some years ago about the black male, and found out that the average reading level for black men in prison was 4th grade. You understand? So that is why there's an emphasis. I found it fascinating, during slavery, slave work was against the law, slaves to read, because it empowered them. And even today, reading is essential, and we don't need a lot of big programs to help out with this issue. I was mentoring students 1 hour a week to teach them how to read better. And anyone can do that. One student, 1 hour per week, teach them how to read better. You don't need a lot of programs. You just have to put an hour in a week for that student. And that is a key, to show interest in that one student and teaching them how to read. And if they can read, then their test scores will automatically come up.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I mean, NAACP at the national level, they have an excellent report out, misplaced priorities, over incarceration, under education. It's an incredible report. So they went in and seriously looked at the zip code. And some of the major things looked at the zip code, looked at the test scores by zip code, and then correlated the number of people going to prison from those. So I agree 100%. And I hope you wouldn't interpret my comment and say, anyway, I was demeaning the emphasis on the that was involved. But what we got to do, and I agree, we've got to embed this into our culture. One of the problems in schools is a lot of children miss too much school, and they miss the reading block, which in many schools is the first thing in the morning. So if you're late, if you're tardy, which consistently a lot of our kids are, then they're missing the reading block. So I'm concerned with you. I think we've got to figure out how we incorporate reading into our culture again. Kids spend from birth to 19, they spend 9% of the time in school and 91% of the time somewhere other than school. And I still think we can get there, depending on the public school alone. I mean, we spend a lot of money right now, and it's not like we're not trying to do this. I mean, these teachers are really trying, most of them I know. I'm suggesting we have to build reading and written programs during the summers, after school, embed them in sports programs, where we're getting kids coming together. We've got to get trained people, we can train us lay folks to understand how we can be a part of this whole process to really get there. And that's what I was suggesting, because what they didn't do with all this talk about reading, they're not allocating additional resources. And so there's no additional resources that they're allocated to try to move the reading score, which you're 100% on point. And in Caddo County, we ran an entire workforce investment program for youth, ages 14 to 21 for like 4 years. And we tested every child that we had. Okay, over 500 kids we had in that program. And they were 9th through 11th graders most of them. They were reading on average at 4th grade. The boys were reading at the 4th grade, the girls were reading about the 5th grade. And the math scores was about the 3rd grade. These were 500 kids from all over the county. Probably half of them were black, because we did focus on the inner city of Charleston. So I'm with you. I believe that education is 21st century civil rights issue is unfinished business in the civil rights issue. Well, I don't believe, and I'm an advocate of the public school system, I don't believe the public school system can get us there quick enough for us to be competitive black folks. Okay? We can't get there fast if we don't build enrichment type things to go along with the public school system is doing. Our kids are not going to be competitive. That's the bottom line. It's like this playing baseball. See Dr. Robinson showed this before, so everybody can go see it. Where's the bottom line? We keep talking about we're getting better. Where if I hit a ground ball to shortstop, he throw me out. If I hit a ground ball to the base catch, he throw me out. I hit a ground ball to left field, he throw me out. Well, I'm still out. But my point is, I still haven't gotten a hit. And what I'm suggesting, what's happening right now is that we're not improving fast enough. And we have got to develop a system, we, in the African Americans, we got to develop a system to say, here's what we're going to get out of public school system. And then we're going to do what Ms. Lewis and others are doing. We got to build a whole educational structure. If you look at the test scores, our kids are doing so poorly, our best kids, our very best, look at the top kids. That's why only 100 some kids to get the proper scholarship. Because when they take the ACT or the SAT test, they can't make 23 or 24. And what that means is, from K through 11 or 12, they simply haven't gotten enough to be competitive at that level. So I'm in total agreement, and I'm a public school advocate. But as community people, we don't start building some enrichment programs, after school enrichment programs, if we don't get the best minds in front of our children again when they're away from school, our children are not going to be competitive moving forward. Because we're losing ground. We're losing ground each year.
May I make one last comment, and it's very short. This is how the prison industrial complex is fed. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. You need to feed that private prison industrial complex. And like I said, 3rd grade test scores, they build prison cells according to that. And privatization of prisons, you need people to be placed in the prison because it's a profit-making issue.
I have a question. My question is, why don't we go back and get the black schools and black universities that we had? Some of them are still empty buildings in some neighborhoods. We have Dunbar and Fairmont. Why don't we use those as vocational technical centers to train brothers and sisters that are young? I mean, can I get some feedback, somebody, please?
I think that's what we're attempting to do. I think that's what Ms. Lewis is doing in Morgantown, but they went and purchased the old school. But, you know, when you say keyword purchase cars, you know, money, you know, but I think that they are. There are structures in our community. I think Reverend Cox was talking about making sure that we do something with that school building. If they leave that building, to still be a valuable part of the community. And I think that's what we need to do. But I think that Diane was a prime example of it being done down in Morgantown.
Yes.
I know this is a lot about kids coming to school, but I think we also need to address with our young parents that they need to start educating their children early. My daughter, she started reading at school. She started kindergarten early. We talked about I taught her shapes, I taught her colors, and I give her educational tools instead of an A-class. And I think that that is one of our biggest problems, that as parents, we need to have some kind of outreach program for young parents to give them guidance on how to lead them into kindergarten.
Down in Marino County, Alabama, which is, and Linden is the county seat. My niece is a retired secondary school principal, and she is the executive director of this program. And all of the kids that get kicked out of their classes for whatever reason get sent to that detention center. And they have very strict rules. The teachers have to send the lesson assignment to that school, to that detention place, so that child has to do it every day. The parents are being punished for having their child sent out of school because now they cannot come on the school bus. The parent has to go down and take the kid there. And the parent has to also come back and pick the child up at 2:30. You can't send somebody by on their way home. My cousin's going to come through at 1. Can I pick them up? No, you can't. When they come in the morning, they are the people who run the school take away their cell phones, take away some of their keys, take the watches off of them, and they are have to do their homework that they are assigned in the morning. Sometimes in the afternoon they run out of things. So I would be asked to come over and help out if there was a person missing. And you can imagine what you go through. First thing I would do would be ask, why are you in detention? And they would tell me, somebody said something, called my mother a name. Why did you hit them? Because they called my mother's name. Are they that important to you? Well, you're going to let their opinion make you get in trouble and get kicked out of school. So why would that not be that important? Why hit back when you can report it to your teacher? Why hit back because you can report it to your principal? So by the second day, a new child comes in and they get up and explain why they're there. The kids are now repeating what I just told them. Do you understand? And they're trying to do things to keep them occupied when their schooling is done. You teach them a little bit of elementary French. You ask them what they watch, and so you get to tutor them in what they're doing and what they need to be doing. But it is a good system, and I think if you have a problem with having your child sent home and they're out in the street, that would be something that we might want to look into, ask them for a detention system that takes that. And anyway, it's very good. The parents have to bring the kids. They have to be in the right uniform. They have to have a belt on. If they don't, the parent has to go to the store and buy one by 9 o'clock. They cannot come there with their pants hanging out in the back, et cetera, et cetera. They have to come up with a strict dress code to get in that school, in that place. So it is something that is nice to have a child go and still be able to do, their work and be taken care of. It's right across the street from the elementary school, so they get to go over there for their lunch. Thank you for listening. All right. And we'd be happy to.
One last statement, and one of the things, we've got to change our culture and have our children take advantage of the things that are made available to them. I see too many of our children not even taking advantage of. We talk about the things we need to do for them. There's things out there that are already available, but they're not taking advantage of them. I know that one of the statistics, and it was alarming to me, that 65% of our children going to school on the college had to take some type of remedial courses. But you look at so we had some courses there for them to work with, but we didn't see none of our children doing. They don't want to be labeled as being dumb. But you're smart when you take advantage of those things so you can have a better life. So we've got to change the culture and educate our children to take advantage of the things that are already available to them. And I better go on our speaker for okay.
I wanted to address you all one more time, as my, being a member of the Board of Governors for the University of West Virginia University, that we actually have a few programs that are in place to help minority students. And some of them, one is called the STARS program, which started 4 years ago when I first got on the board. And it was for the Student Achievement Results System. And it's actually put in place as a 5-week program to get students up to speed with what's going on with the regular kids in the education system. The next one, David Bryson, I believe, is one of the speakers that's going to be here today. There's a minority doctoral program through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that David Bryson will probably talk about. He leads that program. And there's been for a long time, because my son took advantage of it, it's called the McNair Scholarship Program, which actually waives his tuition for 2 years at the university that he was able to get. So there's those programs, but the last thing I want to talk about is something that is brand new that just started this year. And it's called a University Within the University. And that program is to help minority students to learn how to go from high school into college. Because what we found is a lot of the students, even though they get accepted into the college, that they drop out within the first year. Then they have a lot of debt. Then they get bad credit. Then they can't get a job, and it just keeps continuing. But this university program that's just started, we actually have identified 6,000 students within the 33,000 students that are enrolled for West Virginia University this upcoming year. That's why we're sending out information to them to see if they want to participate in that program. But it's set up to help them change from one culture to the other and sort of mentor them a little bit more. So Dr. Jimmy said that you need to make sure while you're on the board that you're doing something. That's one thing that is really great. And Dr. Dooley is actually heading up that program, and she's really a supporter of minority advocates. The last thing I want to say that, knowledge is power. I'm telling you, there is so much information out there. Has anybody heard of a MOOC? Do you know what that is? A MOOC is a new way that students are learning online. It's called Massive Open Online Courses. And you guys need to Google that. And it's a new way that education and upper higher education is going to be going that way. And a lot of times we hear things after the fact, and we're always at the end of hearing about things. So I just wanted to let you all know that that is the way of the future, that a lot of the courses are going. Oh, okay, but anyway, that is something that the university's looking into, and a lot of the, MIT, a lot of the universities are doing this move. So please look that up when you go back home and get familiar with that, because it doesn't cost as much. And, they're trying to figure out how to give you, credit within the colleges for the,
What are the letters? MOOC, M-O-O?
it's MOOC for massive open online courses. Debbie wanted me to just finalize with my speaking with about the students that we've worked with, that actually, in a normal year, we've worked with about 80 students a year, is what they give us through the Miami-Dade County school system, and out of those 80 kids, we have 78% of them that have graduated. So, you know, we're just trying to get it right, but, you know, we're always learning, so thank you.
I have a question for Pastor Washington.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to move real quick. And we're right, we can make big books and speak through this here. But I handed a little pamphlet out that was completed about 24 years ago. And it looks at a higher education institution. I'm willing to put up $500 through our committee for folks to duplicate that type of framework of analysis of their institution. I know there's not a lot of money, it's just a little incentive. Let's begin looking at institutions from a different perspective. Now that's a 24 or 23-year perspective. I really want someone to go back and do that on Marshall now. 8 African American faculty on that campus. How many is at Marshall right now? How many is at West Virginia U? West Virginia U had 14 of 880, or 1.5%. Marshall University has 8 of 454, 1.7%. Oh, Marshall beat West Virginia U in something. All right. West Liberty State College has 0 of 126 for 0%. West Virginia State College, now University, had 27 of 128 when this was written in 1989. That was 21%. Now, is it better or is it worse today? And take in consideration, most of these were African American. Today, there is diversity within the Black American culture. There's diversity. We talk about Black immigrants, and then where do the Black immigrants come from? Are they Afro-Caribbean? Are they Afro-Brazilian? Are they from Central Africa, Northern Africa? Are they from Southern Africa, West Africa, Kenya, East Africa? We have to look at that diversity. Because we are Black does not mean we all think the same. Because we have the same color. So we must look at the way we evaluate these institutions, and when someone says Black, and they list Black, and they list a number, someone at that institution has to look at that and verify, are these really real people, period. When you begin putting coaches in as Black faculty, when you find administrators and service people that are put in as Black faculty, that's a lie. And we need to figure out how to force people to tell the truth. So maybe we need to stop going to the administrators and maybe go to the policy board, but at the same time, go to the board of governors and ask
This concludes our program, and I want to thank you very much, and thank this panel, and I want to thank the Debbie Robinson for her input and help putting this program together. Mr. Robinson.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I would say that so far this has been a very productive meeting, and we have had food for our minds. Now we're going to have some food for our stomachs, and we're going to have a speaker for our after that, and then we go home. But at this point, I would ask that Reverend somebody comes up here and let us know. I have all kinds of ministers.
We're gonna do all that upstairs. We got a program upstairs. We're gonna do all that upstairs. The lunch is gonna be upstairs, so everybody just go upstairs. We got a program. We got the pastor, lesson.
Yes, sir, brother.
Sorry, that cut you off. We were 15 minutes behind
Human Rights Commission does. But I believe that most of you are familiar with the fact that what we are charged to do is to receive complaints of alleged discrimination according to race, religion, sex, age, national origin, familial status, and several others. And as those complaints come into our office, we have a staff of individuals, some designated specifically for housing complaints, some designated specifically for employment and public accommodation complaints, who process those complaints as they come to our office. With the recent sequester and hiring freeze that is in the state of West Virginia, despite that, we have been able to reach our national quota through HUD and EEOC, from which we get a lot of our funding. And so we are very proud of that. The West Virginia Human Rights Commission is committed to be non-biased. We don't take sides with individuals. We work to try and resolve, and as I was looking through some of the information, a lot of what you do and through the work of the NAACP, a lot of what we do is very similar, in that we do try to resolve a case as it comes in without it going to the next level. Within the time that we've been working, that I've been working with the Human Rights Commission, we do a lot of training which is required. It's mandatory for our investigators to participate in training sessions that are provided by EEOC as well as HUD. As a matter of fact, we have one such training coming up on the 22nd and 23rd of this month. Ms. Ridgway mentioned also that April is National Fair Housing Month. And with that being said, this is the 45th year of the signing of the National Human Housing Act that was established by Reverend Martin Luther King. So we do have a fair housing conference that I believe some of you have information for. We will certainly make that information available to as many of you that would like to have it on the 29th and 30th of this month. And those of you that are in the church, we certainly invite you to be a part of that conference. It's going to be held at the Summit Center there in Charleston. One of the other functions that we do have is that we do conduct awareness sessions throughout the state of West Virginia. We are the state agency, the state commission, although there are other human rights agencies through one in Wheeling, one in, Morton, Fairmont area, that's been recently reestablished. We have a satellite office that is manned now by one individual in Huntington, West Virginia, due to the passing of one of the staff that was working with that. And, I believe that, I think I missed one. But we do have other satellite offices that funnel complaints, to our office, because we are the agency or the commission for the entire state of West Virginia. One of the things that I find very interesting, the West Virginia Human Rights Commission celebrated its 50th year in 2011. And as the outreach coordinator, I have traveled throughout the state of West Virginia and conducted awareness sessions such as this. I just did one in Clarksburg about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that I do is I ask individuals to raise their hand so that I can get a head count of those individuals who even know anything at all about the West Virginia Human Rights Commission. If they've heard of it, if they know of its existence, if they've heard about what we do. And I get so few show of hands. I conducted an outreach workshop in the Martinsburg Mall up in the Eastern Panhandle, and one of our commissioners lives in Lewis that we at the mall. And we spent 8 hours in the Martinsburg Mall giving out information about the West Virginia Human Rights Commission. And as each person would pass the table and we would give them information, I would stop them and ask them, have you ever heard of the West Virginia Human Rights Commission? Do you know the work that is involved? Do you know what you do? Do you know about filing a complaint, how to file a complaint? And the majority of the people that I saw on that day said no. And so I do feel that what we are doing here, and that's why I have such a great appreciation of Ms. Ridgway and those of you that have invited me here. I believe that maybe just a refresher for some of you that we are in existence. We are doing a great work in Charleston, West Virginia. We strive to do as much as we can, but we cannot do it all. So we appreciate the partnerships that we've been able to garner throughout the state, the NAACP and other organizations that work for humanity and holistic approaches to keeping West Virginia citizens abreast of their rights. Two other things, and I believe that our time is gone. We do a lot for human rights in terms of adults, and making sure that we are abreast of the changing policies and procedures that come along with the Human Rights Commission, and keeping everyone involved and informed, especially through the option of our annual report, which we now put on a CD. It is also on our website. We have a new website which I will give you. But the CD is available if you would like an individual one. We can certainly send you that, but it is available online. We've updated our website so that we believe that there's a lot more user-friendly, and there is an opportunity to post a lot more information for the public on our website. But in saying that, we have also developed, and I believe Marshall has some of them here, my colleague Marshall Ross is here with our kiosk in the back, and we do have a lot more information, so certainly I do want to acknowledge that. But we have developed 2 coloring books for the benefit of grade school and middle school age children that speaks to human rights in a language that they can understand. One of the reasons that I'm very proud of those 2 coloring books is that one of them highlights, and I'm sure the name Lily Ledbetter may be familiar to most of you. If not, very quickly, she is the individual who was, or who is, responsible for women in particular being able to receive equal pay for equal work. I had the opportunity to meet Lily Ledbetter, and I do have a copy of her book, and if you have not read it, I would encourage you to get the book and read it, because in the work that we do, I found a living example of why the work of discrimination or the advancement to try and protect an individual's rights is so important. She is a living, breathing example of why the work She only filed on the basis of equal pay for the work that she was doing. But in reading her story, it's very clear that she was a victim of all of the protected classes that are given and charged under the West Virginia Human Rights Act. She was a victim of discrimination age-wise. She was a victim of discrimination according to her sex because she was a female working in a predominantly male area for Goodyear Tire. She was a victim of sexual harassment. She was a victim in so many ways, but she only filed on the basis of equal pay for equal work. She actually won that suit on the local level, but it was overturned by the Supreme Court. And so she has dedicated the rest of her years, and in total, I believe that it's been about 13 years, fighting for the rights of others. I believe that that sort of sums up my comments in terms of the work that we do, the very important work of the NAACP, the very important work of the West Virginia Human Rights Commission. A lot of times we are charged and given the charge to continue the work that we do for the benefit of others. And so I applaud the NAACP for the work that you are doing, and I certainly appreciate your inviting the West Virginia Human Rights Commission to be a part of that. We certainly do look forward to a continued networking and a continued partnership with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackett. I just have one question and you answer one. When it comes to fair housing, do you get many complaints from African Americans in the area?
Washington office here is an on-time housing investment.
I think a lot of our members, and I do, would be interested in knowing if we have a large number of African American complaints with regards to fair housing.
I would say, you get, we work in housing division, you get about 40 to 50 cases a year right now. I would say about that on a regular basis. And oftentimes when they do this, it might be great if it's in the building. We get quite a few of those that have combinations. But I'm not really sure why. We're not really sure why they're being discriminated, feel something. It's not always, sometimes it's a little bit one and a little bit of the other. Sometimes it's both. The other round of the foul and the debate and our investigation. But I apologize for being late. Black House Street, 7 street, but I think you in here, you're here. Yes. One question. On the foreclosure housing taking place, have you looked into the possibility of the North East determining as far as foreclosure correctly female and old age, and so what is the outcome? I understand the question. We have not doing that. And I can say we have not had very many complaints on it. But whereas the national law about foreclosure we've not computed the complaints in the last year. I kind of see every complaint from this.
Yes, I have a question. My name is Shabazz. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. And we get a lot of complaints in the Morgantown area with regard to housing discrimination, particularly amongst young African Americans that come into the area. I live in Marjorie Gardens development, which is a low-income housing development, and I'm quite sure you've gotten complaints from Marjorie Gardens before in the past. Right. I'd like to know what is the success ratio in your litigation in housing discrimination in terms of what kind of complaint would you file? Are you being successful? And give me an update. Give us an update on that, sir, if you would.
I would say, and I think we specific for that. thank you for the
Yes, sir.
generally, we spend some time in Morgan County. But I would say this. I would guess that most of our complaints that we have here are not ready. We had probably most of the people there's educational gap in the that's very true that I would say so. You probably don't want to some negotiation. In reality, we're allowed to negotiate or try to negotiate at any point in the negotiation. Which is a little different from the employment and something like that. The conciliation is kind of stretching at a certain point. Early point, mid-hour, termination. You don't have to wait for the termination.
Yes, sir.
We see where there's an opportunity to what is going to be done, or we'll go right into the try to get it done. So I would say a good number, I think, are negotiating. One, we had several things coming up. And I had a lot of success getting out of the public stage, mainly because in our law there's an election option. Once there's a determination of cause, findings of cause, they go to charge. What we call a charge, and that's somebody is everything that the investigation is. And if the charge is when you take any point, between days and election goes to the court as opposed to what you're hearing. Public hearing process includes our ALJ, how many state laws, should go, it's like the court. But many people would rather go to the church and be done now. I'm sure man on familiar with the political structure locally and how it's built.
Well, I want to interrupt you and say that I was one of those people that went on ahead and filed my complaint, my lawsuit locally, and I was able to receive a little bit of justice as a result of it. But I would have liked to have had the Human Rights Commission, NAACP, to support that litigation, because if I had had an attorney, I would have got a lot more than the $4,500 that I received.
Okay. If you're that people, you try to counsel people a little bit. If you're that, can you hear me?
Go to the
sorry. Yeah, okay, so if you would elect to take your case to court, you lose the commission support at that point. It's no longer our case. As long as it's in our process, when the hearing stage with our civil rights division, who represents us in those court cases, stays with the human rights case, and also will represent our interests, the public's interest in the case, and oftentimes then include jury in the case. So we stay with it if there's then a public hearing on that track. Once it goes to the attorney case, of course, we don't have that option. Oftentimes, we're not involved in it. Try to counsel people. The thing about the public hearing is generally it results in a said it's compelling. So that if you didn't feel like your case, decision was best, if you brought us in the case, you were the public hearing, you would have to appeal, review, under public hearing. Now, all of that happens even before you ever have to go to the court. But even at the end of that, commission will issue their final order, and their final order is subject to appeal, administrative review, in the circuit court. So you'll have a couple more bites, you know, to stay in the process, but oftentimes people don't feel like they're there. And time is an issue. You have a small staff, depending upon what the urgency of your particular case is, you might not be able to say as soon as you have an opportunity that oftentimes people will go. We deal with a lot of information, in our case, so, or it might be a housing purchase situation, and you don't have the opportunity to stop that action or enter the injunction to stop the action and hold it. You have to then try to get the case done within that 100 days. Go back 3 months, you know, how can you wait for that activity? But the case gets through our process quickly, you can get in the court quickly, all you have to involve for that time. So, yes, absolutely. I'm glad to mention that because you do get a lot like you get circuit court appeals. If you don't believe that satisfied if you were adversely affected by the decision, you can take it up to the Supreme Court. We've had a few cases that have gone that route. Not always feel like that's the point, but that is an option.
Who is your representative in the Morgantown, Fairmont area?
Our representative.
Yeah, for example, if I had a complaint in the Morgantown, Fairmont area.
Tim Harrison.
Tim Harrison.
Region.
And where is he based out? Is he based in Fairmont or Morgantown?
Fairmont is, southwest, Morgantown is Tim Harrison.
Tim Harrison.
And the thing about our representatives, even though they come from those regions, because they know they bring their unique areas problems, they're pretty familiar with the entire state. They can go, and oftentimes when we have an event that we are sponsoring, our commissioners will travel to that area with us, represent the commission. So we get a chance to see somebody registered in southern part of the state. That's something that might be important. They're not strict. We want to represent everyone represented. Some, as you know, some like you mentioned the Morgantown area, sometimes more, I guess, regional problems. We have some large landowners that really are as well as the housing start in the area or rental use and some particular problems related to that. And oftentimes the commissioners bring that to the table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. And Ms. Cynthia. Questions that you might pick up later on, you can check with those 2 people, but I'm sure they're there for you. We're going to move on to our opening of our meeting or business session. Now, I have a question. Let's see, we can take a break now, or we can have our business session, take a break before we have our education summit. I need to know how many of the candidates are here. I see Red One, and I believe Mr. Griffin. We had, let's see, Phil, we had 5 people, did we not? I got it.
Right, yeah, you have, Mr. Diane.
I guess this evening?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So you're,
And, I'll explain about
Okay.
Scott.
okay, let me see the hands up who would like to have the break following our business session before the summit. Those who would like to have the break now. Okay. It looks like we're going to have our break following our business session and before the summer. So I'm going to officially open our business meeting. At this point, I would like to call for the minutes of the previous meeting, which was our winter meeting, held at West Virginia State University. Mr. Jim Tolbert, our state secretary.
Madam President, I'd like to move that the minutes be received as circulated.
Madam President, I'll second motion.
It has been properly moved and seconded that our minutes from the winter meeting be accepted. Is there any question on the motion? All in favor, aye? Uh-oh, that was the aye. Opposition? Ayes have it. Minutes will be recorded. Let's see, you have, and you should have received, if I missed you, raise your hand, report from me in my attendance at the regional meeting in Michigan, which was the Karate Institute. And if you did not get a copy of that, I'm not going to go through that word by word in cultural intelligence, but you can peruse it, and then I'll call for a motion to accept that report. Actually broke it down as to what the position is of the national and as far as the regional units go and the state conferences go. This is our position. And these are things that the Region 3, Midwestern Region 3, thinks that we should be placing our concentration and our focus on. So if you'll take a quick look at those, and then I will call for a motion to accept my report. Yeah. I will just say a few things about the report before we accept it. As you see, that I put underneath the date, the whole theme of the Institute was changing the game. What has been happening years before we met, years before President Obama took his second term, some of those games need to be changed with regards to the 5 points that I've listed, which are healthcare, education, criminal justice, voting rights, and economic justice. So when you read the breakdown of those, you'll see that I have a chart beside a few of them. And one of the workshops that I attended was one on the private school versus public school issue and vouchers. And you see that our position is that we oppose publicly funded private school vouchers. And the reason being is that a lot of the schools that are starting up, the charter schools and what have you, are taking funds that are originally designed for and applied to public schools. They're being used for those private schools. And so when you have money taken from the public school system and put into those special schools, then you get the best students, you get the best teachers, and the inner city schools, especially when talking about the larger cities, are left with deficiency in their curriculum, deficiencies in the teachers, and therefore students don't have a chance. So, they're working on a better system to, balance everything out, but they're definitely opposed to vouchers. Also, you see stars where we, to allow students convicted of minor drug offenses to receive federal financial aid. There are some states that disqualify students who have been convicted of a minor offense. They just shut down the system completely and receiving funds to go to school, to go to a higher education. So we're working on that. And the list goes on, and get into racial profiling, and get into economic justice, and of course, jobs and all of those other things. So at this point, I would just ask that you give me a motion to accept the report, and then it will be filed, and if you have questions, then I'll accept the motion. Okay, I have a motion. Okay, and seconded. Properly moved and seconded, that received the report on the Midwestern Region 3 Civil Rights Advocacy Training Institute. Are there any questions on the motion? Ready for the vote? All in favor? Good night, have a motion carried. At this time, I'll call for the treasurer's report. Okay, if you look inside your packet, it has a green sheet cover. You will find the treasurer's report. Once again, I'll just mention that Larry Tobin, our state treasurer, did he have open heart surgery? Was it open heart surgery? He had an aneurysm. Okay, he had an aneurysm. And was in the hospital for some time, and he was unable to make the trip here today. He's our state treasurer, and so just keep him in your prayers. And we will find his report inside your packet.